A wise man once said the two defining features of Eastern European gaming is bold design and buggy code. This has been a divine truth throughout the decades. Many artists have tried their hand at video gaming to very mixed success, few ever building up a cult following. So was the case for Chameleon, easily the most obscure game I've covered. Made in 2003 by the Slovakian developer Silverwish Games, a division of the more successful Illusion Softworks, aka 2K Czech, aka Hangar 13, it saw release in 2005 when the company was essentially shutting down. Despite being finished and fully playable, it only saw a limited release in Eastern Europe, seemingly Slovakia, Poland and Russia, even though it was fully dubbed in English. I can't find a copy of the game for the life of me, and unless GOG picks it up, the only option is through much simpler, Polish-based methods. This is justifiable, as that's how I was able to patch and then translate it. Be aware, it comes with the DRM protection program Starforce, which will break your Windows 10 machine. Guess how I found that out? You'd think after all these hoops, it'll be a total shit show. But Chameleon is a fun hybrid between Hitman and Splinter Cell, which, considering its budget and running on the same engine as the first Mafia game, is a pleasant surprise. The story is shockingly direct. As a nameless ex-CIA agent, you're haunted by the inexplicable assassination of your parents as a young boy. With plenty of free time, you resolve to track down the shooter and the motive for some long-awaited vengeance, assisted by your buddies in the agency. Contrary to so many globe-trotting adventures, it's a personal story through and through, no nukes, clones, nanomachines, or an underworld conspiracy, which I found quite refreshing. The countries you pass through range from Argentina, Cuba, Lebanon, and Moldova, so quite a few places usually never touched in games. While it's self-evident how blurry and outdated the textures are, the variety of geometry, environmental touches, and ambient background noise still gives off a very grimy, compelling, noir-like vibe. Unfortunately, a lot of the plot and characterization is partly lost in translation. Characters are introduced, then killed off screen as if they're just cut out. The reasons for what you're even doing for some missions are quite literally waste of time or needlessly confusing. I initially thought you were the good guy with him taking out terrorists and gangsters, but then you infiltrate numerous military bases, killing dozens of regular soldiers, just doing their job before jumping to the next continent like it's no problem. What baffled me the most though, wasn't the semi-decent voice work, but it's all fully dubbed in English. This is just so strange when it never saw a release in any English-speaking country. Although it's clear things weren't entirely finished, with all the enemies having Irish accents, which, when fighting in Afghanistan, was pretty funny. Chameleon's gameplay is quite linear considering its influences. Each mission has you call up your contracts to update your plans, and get some more details, all of which are connected on a nifty chart that flows from start to end. The stages are a mix between semi-open-ended stealth sections and straightforward third-person combat. The former sets you up in large maps and tasks you to infiltrate an area via stealth and subterfuge. Objectives can be passing through undetected, snapping photographs, finding and interrogating a target, and even some assassinations. A lot of missions enable more aggressive playstyles, firstly by allowing you to select firearms before starting, a la Hitman, and having tripping the alarm not result in a game over, but just add a new challenge as guards swarm in. Even if this happens, ample quick saves and checkpoints can get you over most mistakes. The firearm selection is quite high and diverse. There's the typical pistols that can be silenced, and assault rifles and SMGs that have attachable scopes. There's a lack of sniper rifles aside from a bizarro Galil that's somehow bolt action, and you can't pick up fallen enemies' gear, though this isn't necessary and more likely was to prevent players from getting too well armed. By no means a gold standard, Chameleon has some decent stealth mechanics that make it quite playable and rewarding, albeit often having only one solution. You have a light bar indicating how visible you are, as well as being able to run, crouch, and prone through most obstacles. When noticed, you're notified by a flashing symbol, usually allowing enough room to take cover before detected. The AI is competent enough to investigate disturbances, and the game does utilize some clever environmental puzzles to bypass guards, but it's still very easy to just stick to the shadows, meters away from someone without them noticing. This makes stealthing quite simplistic. Infrequent cameras can spot you, but more off can be shut down, though this still adds a nice challenge. There's also additional gadgets that can give you the upper hand, a spy camera to peek under doors, and different lockpicks. If you need to take down someone, you can either choke them out, use the taser, or are limited by fast-acting silent crossbow. Hiding bodies can be quickly done by dragging them back into the shadows, impressive considering the engine it's running on. The weird thing is that there's no real difference between a taser or a choke, and the crossbow is made pretty redundant when a silenced gun has the same result. You can't even use them on civilians, which makes public sections really annoying. Surely gunning down dozens of mooks would have some negative connotation. Nope, unlike previously mentioned titles, there's no unlockables or even rankings, essentially making no difference between a near pacifist playthrough, which you can do, or a total massacre. I really enjoy mechanical freedom and choice in my games, but I also like having an actual purpose and reward for trying things differently. There are a handful of missions that are decidedly combat oriented. Chameleon's third person combat ain't amazing. The guns feel a little inaccurate and you can die very quickly if exposed. Enemies will either drop from a few rounds to take half a magazine before dying. I wouldn't call it hard, as medkits and flashbangs can help clear areas with ease, but there can be some fun derided with a few good levels and the usage of ragdolls. An interesting feature is being able to go into a first person mode, just like an MGS2. This makes shooting a bit easier and helps in cramped spaces, but a pure shooter this isn't. There's unfortunately nothing outside the campaign, and with much of it being very scripted, replayability is quite low. Chameleon sets up a lot of potential, but with only one solution or path for completing a level, a lack of rewards or unlockables, its foundations are sadly underused. In many ways, Chameleon doesn't stand out in any deeply substantial way, but I'm a sucker for janky yet ambitious titles that end up forgotten, and it's pretty sweet packing a silent scorpion while breaking into a submarine. I'm hoping that GOG picks it up to give the appreciation and audience it deserved, but for now it remains another obscure, interesting footnote in the European gaming scene.